Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship.
Do you know who police are when they're at their best? They're selfless servants who help us and who sometimes pay the ultimate price for it. They're the kind of people who run towards danger when the rest of us are running away. On 9/11, for example, hundreds of firefighters died in the Twin Towers, but so did 60 cops running into the towers to help save lives. When you're in trouble late at night, you don't call a social worker or a political pundit. They don't even answer the phones. Who's on guard 24 hours a day? Who responds in minutes? The police. I say all this because police can be the best among us. To serve and protect is a common police force motto. Maintien le droit is the motto of the RCMP. That's French for uphold the right. It could also be interpreted as uphold the law. Those are the best people, and we take them for granted 99% of the time when we don't need them. Most criticism of police, I think, is fake. It's political posturing in the US, but also now in Canada. There's a defund the police movement. Yeah, how's that working out for you? I notice that the defund the police politicians sure aren't shy about calling for the police to protect them personally. So that's cops. And I say all this because I have to remind myself about all this. I have to keep thinking about those cops rushing into the burning Twin Towers, the police saving lives, because I have to keep that memory alive in my mind so that I'm not poisoned by the hundreds, literally hundreds of examples of abusive, illegal, unconstitutional policing that I have seen in the past 15 months of the pandemic. I mean, just our own reporters here in Canada.
I'm not in a crowd.
No.
I'm not in a crowd of 20 though.
Okay, walk.
Why? My colleague is detained. I have to stay.
Let's go.
I'm on public property.
No, man, put your mask on.
I'm not in a group of 20 though.
Hey, toi sur le trottoir. Hey.
I'm not in a group of.
He drove into me. He drove into me. Are you hiding your name? Into me. Keep your distance. Hey. Here are the thugs! Here are the thugs! Here come the thugs! Shame! 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 Shame!
Yeah, I'm media.
Yeah, we'll take a piece of ID with you, sir.
Sure. Yeah.
Go on
Okay.
the sidewalk.
Yeah.
You cannot be on the street.
Yeah. I'm in the middle of moving. You're talking to me. Can you not shine at it?
I don't know who you are. No?
I also don't know who you are.
I'm Constable Robert, 6473.
Okay. And who are you? I'm giving you my papers. No problem. Just.
Okay.
What?
Who are you, sir?
I'm with Rebel News. I'm not media Juif. Who are you?
And the police obsession with our Australian reporter, Avi Yamini.
It was quite peaceful until.
They've got us!
Like here is not here for any purpose of reason.
Avi, they've got
Putting
us!
under arrest. But this guy here is going to be placed under arrest right now.
Well, I'm under arrest. Yeah, I'm media. I am media. I'm media. I've got my permit in my pocket. My permit is in my pocket. I'm fine.
Or recording devices because you don't want to be recorded. You remember how that happened?
In the back of a police vehicle, or is it in the back? Thank you.
Guys, I don't want to go, so they're going to have to physically take me. You can see here, it's against my will. You can see here, guys, it's against my will. You can see here, I'm getting forced and pushed in the back.
What's this?
Hi, Avi. My name's Alex. I'm from Dandenong Police Station. Just got a letter here for you.
You
from
guys.
the Assistant Commissioner. Just in relation to the protest tomorrow, mate.
What's your name?
First Constable Alex Lyons from
Who we
Dandenong.
got here? So this is a letter to, what's it about?
It's in relation to the protest tomorrow, mate.
Yeah, so what's the letter you're sending me from the Commissioner?
The contents are for yourself to have a read.
Why is he sending me letters?
What's that?
Why is he sending me letters?
We've got several.
What time is it?
It is 8:30, mate. We've got several letters to deliver, so we're going to be off.
Are you going to Channel 7, Channel 9? Are you going to Channel 10's house tonight?
That's just our people. Here's a case we're helping in our Fight the Fines battle. I can't show you any more of that because I get disturbed for days watching that video. This was just a week ago.
Major, and record this. It's online.
He can record it. Jump out, mate.
I'm not jumping out. I've done nothing wrong. I'm happy for you guys to just leave me alone. I'm happy for you guys to just leave me alone. Record this, Major. You're embarrassing me. I've committed no crime and you know it.
That's Australia, but it's here in Canada too. I mean, why is a police SWAT team taking down a Christian pastor in the middle of a busy highway, making him kneel down on the street while cars whiz by in the rain? He's not charged with a crime. Why did they do that in the highway? Why did they arrest and jail this pastor in front of his children? Why did they arrest and jail this pastor for 35 days? Why did this out-of-control cop scream at and swear at and threaten to taser a kid for being on an outdoor ice rink that was actually an official city ice rink officially open?
Get down on the ground. Down on the ground. Why are you guys grabbing?
You guys just need to
Why are you guys grabbing?
Hey, orcs.
Not pulling, okay?
Ocean, get on the ground.
Ocean. Get on the ground. Why are you guys
Get on
the fucking ground right now?
Ocean.
Guys, please, get on the ground before I taser you.
Ocean.
Right now.
Why did police literally barge into a church in Ontario?
Amen. Please go ahead, officer. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is David Miller.
Here's the mic.
I'm a court enforcement officer, commonly known as a sheriff. I have a valid court order here today requiring the sheriff, that's me, and the assistance of the police to vacate everyone from the building, and we will be locking the building.
Why did police fine a man for sitting in his car alone drinking coffee?
If you come back, you will now be trespassing.
Does that include every Tim Hortons in town?
No, that's just one here in Hampton. Just this one. So if you come back, you're trespassing. There's your ticket. Leave the parking lot now, sir. Let's have another one. Next one goes up to $1,000.
Really?
Yes. You can get up to $10,000.
How many have you given out today?
You're the first.
Well, I feel so good about
You're lucky.
that.
You're the first. You're the first asshole I've had.
See my point? I am so disgusted by the gross misconduct of so many police these days that I have to work hard to remind myself that police aren't just Gestapo-like bullies.
Please get out. Get out of this property. Immediately get out. Get out of this property immediately. Out. I don't want to hear anything. Out of this property immediately. I don't want to hear a word. Out. Out. Out of this property immediately until you come back with a warrant. Out. 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 Out of this property. Immediately out. Immediately go out and don't come back. I don't want to talk to you. Not a word. Out of this property. Immediately out. I don't care what you have to say. Out. Out. Out of this property, you Nazis. Out. Out. Gestapo is not allowed here.
Imagine that, a pack of cops going into a church with guns. I have to remind myself of the great police too. The selfless ones, the ones who actually, what's that called again? That thing they used to do? Oh, right. The cops that actually fight against crime. I have to remind myself of those ones, the good guys. Don't forget them. Don't judge all cops by the bad apples. So do you have my position? I like police who do police work. I have no time for police who engage in thuggery, especially at the behest of politicians. I mean, seriously. This was because a barbecue restaurant was still selling sandwiches. Sorry, that's not police work. That's a political shock and awe campaign to scare people into not protesting, scare people into political submission. There were children at that restaurant when the riot police charged on their horses. So gross. Or this from outside Toronto. Or this. Brian Pallister, the Premier of Manitoba, tells a Canadian citizen, Maxime Bernier, who happens to be the leader of a political party, not to set foot in his province. Bernier does, and he's arrested.
Afternoon, sir.
Yes, yes.
Park with the RCMP.
Yeah.
If I can get you step out of the vehicle, I'm going to place you under arrest right now.
Yeah.
Right now, you're under arrest under the provincial health orders. Okay, so if you can just put your hands behind your back, face towards the vehicle. Okay, give me one hand here.
I'll just use the same vehicle, okay?
Yep.
The other hand. Do you have any weapons or anything on you, sir?
Weapon? No, no weapon. Only,
anything on you
only
that's
my
hurt
words.
Me or anything like that?
Sorry?
Anything on you that's going to hurt me or anything like that?
No, anything will hurt you. Only my words, only my philosophy, only what I believe in.
Okay. All right, come on over this way.
So is that how it works now? A premier of a province can have his enemies arrested, handcuffed, jailed. Why was he handcuffed? Was Maxime Bernier a violent threat? Why was he jailed? Why were police involved at all? What crime is he alleged to have committed? So you can see why I have to keep reciting my mantra. It's not all cops like this. Cops save our lives. Cops are there when we're in trouble. Well, not all the time. Our reporters were covering an anti-lockdown protest in Toronto, and someone threw projectiles down at them from a high apartment. The police were right there, but they couldn't be bothered to do anything. They literally told us, go to the police station and fill it out, some paperwork. So yeah, just close your eyes and think of a time when police were the good guys. Hang on to that. I'm sure trying to. I should probably start an award for Best Cop of the Year because I need to hear more stories like that. I need to hear more good news about police like that because I have to tell you, I think I might have found the worst cop in Canada. The worst. Not the most violent. That dishonor probably goes to the Toronto police. What a disgrace they've been. Not the most corrupt cop. That dishonor goes to the Montreal police, and it's not even close. The cop I found is not the stupidest cop. That goes to the town of Aylmer, Ontario. No, I think I've just found the worst cop. You might think I'm talking about this loser, bylaw officer Michael Giesbrecht, who literally gave a ticket to our head of video, Ephraim Monsanto, for the crime of shaking someone's hands.
How's it going, man?
Officer Giesbrecht, City of Hamilton bylaw. I have you here in violation of the Reopening of Ontario Act, gathering with a crowd of more than 5 people.
So that's a pre-written ticket again, just for the record?
I had the ticket made up inside when I saw you out here.
So what were they doing exactly when I was talking to one of the protesters here?
I saw you walking around, getting within 3 meters.
Oh, that's how it is. So if I just talk to someone, that's within 2 meters?
I also watched you shaking their hand.
Oh, I guess I'm breaking the law there. Okay, you got me there.
What a loser that bylaw cop is. What a disgrace. What a fool. What an embarrassment. I'm pretty cool with tattoos. You know, they're not for me, but I don't really care. I like making conversation with people, asking what their tattoos are all about. Great way to make friends. But I really think that handshaking cop has a My Little Pony tattoo on his arm. Can you make that out? I think that's a unicorn or something, but I think it's actually a My Little Pony. Tattoo? It sounds about right for a cop handing out a ticket for handshaking. What an embarrassment to the profession he is. But Michael Giesbrecht is not the worst cop in Canada. In fact, I'm not even sure if he counts as a cop. He's just a bylaw officer. I hereby nominate Staff Sergeant Dan McLean of the Peterborough Police as the worst cop in Canada. And if you think I'm wrong, I challenge you to tell me a worse one. Again, not the most violent, that's Toronto. Not the most corrupt, that's Montreal. Not the dumbest, that's Elmer. Not the most politicized, that would be Trudeau's RCMP. I just mean the worst. So our friend, our great reporter, David Menzies, great journalist. In fact, he's the winner of the Rebbe Award for pandemic journalism. He's unstoppable. He covers everything. Even from the very early days when we didn't know much about the virus, he would go to the airport and report on all the planes landing from China. And as you can see, David would sometimes wear a mask where appropriate. But of course, it doesn't make sense to wear a mask when you're outside. And when you're a reporter, reporters have to speak into a microphone or speak to other people. They don't wear masks doing that. I also know this because Justin Trudeau has showed me that. I mean, here's Trudeau just over the weekend at the G7 meeting, no mask, right next to a bunch of other strangers without masks. So it's good enough for him, it's good enough for us, right? So David was covering a news event in Peterborough in April where various people, including Randy Hillier and Maxime Bernier, were protesting the lockdowns. And by the way, covering the news is considered an essential service. And a lot of other media were there too. It was big news. That was a couple months ago, but then David gets this delivered to his home. A summons to court for covering that event in Peterborough. David is being charged with violating Section 10.1 of the Reopening Ontario Act. What a laugh that misleading law is called. Section 10.1 is a basic enforcement of anti-gathering orders. So that order can be pre-existing or a cop can announce it on the spot, but look at this. Compliance with order. Every individual who is on the premises shall comply with the order to temporarily close the premises by promptly vacating the premises after being informed of the order. David was not told of any order to close any premises or leave any place, and David was not there as part of any gathering, but rather as a journalist reporting on it. This is obviously junk law harassing David because he's the Rebbe Award-winning journalist covering the pandemic, telling the story the media party won't and the political class hates. Because he's not a government shill. Anyway, so it's a summons, and obviously we've provided a lawyer for David. We're going to fight this all the way. And we asked the prosecutor, the police, for what's called disclosure. That's the police case against David. It's all their notes. In Canadian law, the cops have to give you a copy in advance of everything they have, and not just what they want to give you, but everything, including things that could exculpate you. And we got the disclosure from the cops. You can see the front page here. And it is amazing, and it is disgraceful, and it is embarrassing to the police, I mean. And it's why I am nominating Staff Sergeant Dan McLean of the Peterborough Police as Canada's worst cop. Now, it's 22 pages long. A lot of it's just weird. And a reminder of how much power and information the government has about you. I don't mean to embarrass young David Menzies, but they disclosed every speeding ticket the lad ever had, including one going back almost 40 years. I'm serious. They've included the fact that in 1981, David Menzies ran a yellow light. You see that there? Capital punishment is too lenient for such a criminal. Let me read for you excerpts from the complaint typed up by Staff Sergeant Dan McLean in his official report, which is why David's being charged. Going back to the summer of 2020, several community members and organizations have been organizing demonstrations to protest against the provincial government's COVID-19 restrictions. Members of these groups have been holding demonstrations every Saturday out front of City Hall on George Street. These demonstrations have grown from 10 to 15 participants to between 500 and 600 persons. The defendant, David Menzies, lives in Richmond Hill, Ontario, and is a reporter for the Rebel News media outlet. Menzies is active on social media in the anti-lockdown movement across southern Ontario. Hang on, stop there for a second. That's not true. David is actually the least active person on social media in our company. To be candid, I'm not sure if he even knows how to do that stuff. The only thing he ever tweets on Twitter, for example, are simply Rebel News stories that he himself starred in. That's it. You'll never see him comment on other things. He never gets into flame wars or Twitter feuds. He just doesn't. But this cop, Dan McLean, is trying to paint him as an organizer, as opposed to what he is, a reporter covering the news. And then the next sentence is just as gross. Menzies has attended and reported on protests across Ontario and Montreal. Okay, why is that relevant? Other than what they're clearly trying to do, what clearly motivates them here, this is a political charge, a political vendetta. They want him punished not for any health violation or whatever, but because he doesn't cheer for government lockdowns. Let me read some more. Menzies has posted a video on Rebel News dated April 13th of being arrested by Montreal police. In that video, Menzies was observed struggling with police during his arrest. David didn't post that to Rebel News. Our own team did. Just stop with the little lies. It was a false arrest. We're actually, as you know, suing the Montreal police for that violence against us and other violence against our staff. It just doesn't stop in Montreal. But again, what's that got to do with David in Peterborough, Ontario in April, other than trying to paint him as some sort of organizer? That's a lie. As a promoter of the event on social media, that's a lie. And violent, that's a lie. Then Staff Sergeant Dan McLean describes the protest on April 24th in Peterborough and says, this attracted participants from outside Peterborough, which included the defendant David Menzies. But why are you lying again, Dan McLean? David Menzies was no more a participant in that protest than the police were. They were both there in reaction to the protest, to respond to the protest. David was there to do a news report about it, like other reporters were, and the cops were there to do whatever it is that they do these days. Hey, dumb question. If the case against David is so strong here, why is this story so fake and so full of BS? Then here's the dramatic moment in the report. At 12:47 hours, Staff Sergeant McLean made note and observed Menzies approach and greet Mr. Bernier by shaking Mr. Bernier's hand. Well, off with his head. I mean, why even have a trial? Straight to Guantanamo Bay. The two stood next to each other and engaged in a conversation. Neither person was wearing a mask or maintaining the required 2-meter physical distancing. After a short conversation, Menzies could be seen interviewing Mr. Bernier on the grass just off the stage area. Yeah, that's called journalism. Ask a guy for an interview and then interview him. That's what we do, and only a total nut would do that with a mask on. Not even the CBC does that with a mask on. And then this. On one occasion, shortly after 13:30 hours, while Mr. Hillier was speaking, Staff Sergeant McLean could hear a large portion of the crowd yelling, "Shame, shame, shame! Get out, at officers who had just issued Maxime Bernier a ticket. Okay, thanks, Staff Sergeant McLean. I know that hurt your feelings and all, but what does that have to do with David Menzies? He wasn't part of the chanting. This is now, the fourth little gem that's just been added to this report that's got nothing to do with David Menzies, but is absolutely designed to make it look like Menzies is an organizer, is a troublemaker, is violent, is jeering cops, whatever. None of that is true. That's called a goddamn lie. What stands out is it's all political. They know they have to do more than just say David Menzies interviewed Randy Hillier or Maxime Bernier. So they're juicing it up a bit. Canada's worst cop. But I think this is why Menzies was charged. He embarrassed the chief of police there. Never embarrassed the chief of police. Staff Sergeant McLean moved over to this location and stood beside Chief Gilbert, who was involved in a conversation with one of the speakers, MPP Randy Hillier. Staff Sergeant McLean observed Menzies in this scrum, shoulder to shoulder with other participants. Menzies could be seen on video shoving his handheld mic in the face of Police Constable McGill. Menzies was attempting to obtain some sort of statement from Constable McGill after issuing Mr. Bernier a ticket. Police Constable McGill did not respond back to Menzies' repeated requests. Got it? Don't embarrass the chief. Don't embarrass cops, or they'll get you. It goes on and on like this, but then it just gets absurd. They were taking photos and videos of David in action, and not only was he shaking hands, which the cops say is illegal, but they caught him laughing. One photo shows Menzies and Mr. Hillier standing next to each other. Both are laughing, while Mr. Hillier has his left hand on Menzies' right shoulder. Illegal handshaking leads to illegal laughing, and that can lead to illegal hand on shoulder. Seriously, look at these notes from Staff Sergeant McLean's police notebook. Observed Mr. Bernier shake hands with male reporter from Rebel News, and then a detailed description of what David was wearing. So 2 days after the big event, Staff Sergeant Dan McLean sat down in his office and started snooping through YouTube videos. There were 600 people there, so Who are they going to charge? Well, here's what he says he was doing. Going through video from protests attempting to identify organizers and persons who were aggressive. But hang on, that's not our David Menzies. He was neither an organizer nor was he aggressive, other than asking questions and just getting no answers. But look at this. I formed grounds on all the individuals that they breached Section 10.1, Reopening Ontario Act, by not wearing masks and not maintaining physical distance. But no one there did. Not a single person. 600 people were there. No one distanced. No one wore masks. So why did they choose charges against David Menzies? No other media wore masks too that I can see. I looked through a lot of videotape. I just couldn't see any. So why did police charge just David Menzies but no other media? Here's David Menzies reaching over a provincial elected legislator, Randy Hillier, to capture him talking to the chief of police. I think that's what bugged the cops. This is literally the entire page 16 in their disclosure package. This is what filled the police with rage. Here's the next page, page 17. Here's the dreaded shoulder touch evidence. Wow, straight to jail. Here's page 21. Here's their photographic proof that David shook a nice lady's hand. You know, they're almost 6 feet apart there. It looks like it was only for a moment, but remember, I'm reading to you from the police disclosure document. This is what they're giving to the prosecutors to prosecute David over. This is their evidence. I'm not even kidding. But this is what they hate more than anything else. This is page 15 of the disclosure. Here it is. David Menzies and Randy Hillier were having a laugh together. That is in their book of evidence. That is so infuriating to them that Staff Sergeant Dan McLean actually put it in his written report. We've seen people arrested for shaking hands before, but now we've seen them being arrested, or at least being charged rather, for laughing. Staff Sergeant Dan McLean is Canada's worst cop. I'm sorry. And you know, I called him up. I saw his phone number in this disclosure, and I just called him up. I told him I thought he was Canada's worst cop, and I wanted to hear his side of things. And he talked to me. And here's how some of that went.
I am calling you Canada's worst cop, which is pretty stinging. And I thought I'd check and see if you had anything to say.
As far as doing my job as a police officer?
Yeah, I think you're doing it in the worst possible way. Giving people tickets for laughing, for handshaking. I think you're really abusing the law for political reasons.
During a pandemic and following the legislation as according to the law and what it states under the Reopening Ontario Act, as far as the law and what the law states regarding maintaining 2-meter physical distancing. And if you can't do that, then you have to wear a mask.
Yeah, well,
is that what you're referring to? Is that what you're referring to, sir?
That is exactly what I'm referring to.
Are you aware of what the law, the Reopening Ontario Act, states with respect to physical and social distancing? And
I've read the law.
What can you explain to me what the law states with respect to social distancing and physical distancing?
Now, that's a weird question to ask me. He's the cop. I'm asking him about the enforcement of the law. He's asking me what the law says. Now it's clear, right, that he was asking me ironically, sarcastically, as in he's testing my knowledge to show that he's smarter than me, right? Except that the Reopening Act, Ontario Reopening Act, doesn't actually say anything about social distancing or masks. The words just do not exist in the law. Look for yourself. Now, the word mask does appear in the regulations to that law and health orders that are updated all the time. That is true. Here's the orders that were in effect the day of the protest David Menzies was covering. Masks are specifically exempted for TV journalists doing interviews. Section F, performing or rehearsing a film or television production. When Canada's worst cop asked me if I knew the law, I don't think he was trying to rub it in that he knew more than me. I think he was actually asking me, maybe I could help him understand what the law was, because TV production is exempt from masks. So I asked Staff Sergeant Dan McLean why he only targeted David. 600 people there. Why are you targeting just him?
And I want to know if you've charged any other reporter in the country or just David Menzies.
Sir, I've asked you a question. You've asking me one in response, but you still haven't answered my question.
Okay,
I'm calling you because I want
integral
to you and reporting it fairly and objectively. That
Okay, so you're saying he broke the law.
The,
You're trying to say he broke the law. Is that what you're saying?
As the law states under the Reopening Ontario Act, and what
so
the legislation.
Do journalists have to wear masks outside when they're reporting? Does any journalist in the country have to wear a mask when they're reporting, or just David Menzies?
Sir, I am a public official, and when I am conducting my work, when I'm outside in public, I'm not exempt from not wearing a mask while I'm performing my duties.
Actually, he is. The latest version of the lockdown in Ontario simply doesn't have anything about outdoor masks. Nothing. You can look it up. Here's some more.
Okay. Now, have you charged any other reporters ever? I mean, there were a bunch of reporters at that event. Did you charge anyone else or just David?
So some of the other reporters were wearing masks, sir.
Yeah, not that I saw, but that's his way of saying David Menzies was the only reporter charged. Tell me one other who was. Here's more.
Now, I see that you have a picture of David shaking hands with a lady. They're actually fairly far apart. Is that an offense in your mind, shaking hands with someone on the street?
If you're not maintaining the physical distancing and not wearing a mask, then at that time, that is an offense under the Reopening Ontario Act. Do you understand that?
Do you think that's the law? That it's illegal to shake hands on the street? You really think so? You think so, eh? We're going to have to build some more courthouses if that's the case. Here's some more.
Before we go on to the next question, how can you argue the fact that he's not committing an offense when he's in a crowd, he's not maintaining the 2 meters physical distance?
Because it's selective
not
enforcement.
Wearing a mask. Whether
it's selective enforcement. It's selective enforcement. That's right.
Okay, so it's not selective enforcement. It is the facts of the law and understand.
Why did you choose him? Why did you choose him?
The facts of the law.
How many people did you give tickets to for this same offense? How many, or is it just David, or how many others?
No. There was a number of individuals that had received
600 people there. How many got tickets? 600 people there. How many got tickets?
As far as the total number of tickets, I think we've released that. I think from the top of my head, I'm thinking 12 from the top of my head.
Selective enforcement. 12 out of 600 people are charged. You saw his reasoning. It was in his report. David was chatting with people. He was laughing with people. He was interviewing people. And more than any of that, he was just plain old embarrassed the police chief by asking questions. That's why they targeted him.
Well, why are you pulling me over for speeding? Look, there's 500 other people there for speeding. We cannot pull everybody over for speeding. It is impossible. The same as 600 people at the rally. It's physically impossible. And then everybody says, well, why me? Well, why? And that's every person that gets a ticket says the same thing.
Why me? Everyone says that. I'm not sure if everyone says that when they're pulled over for a traffic ticket. I think people know why they were pulled over, because they were speeding. But when you literally have a gathering of 600 people, and then you meticulously spend 10 days choosing and selecting, it actually becomes a real question. Why him and not her? It's not just who you happen to pull over at any moment on a highway. This was planned in advance. Let me refer to Staff Sergeant McLean's handwritten notes. This was targeting organizers, people they said were aggressive. David was not an organizer. David was not aggressive. He was not an organizer or a participant. They lied because they want to get him for political reasons.
The facts in issue are not favorable for Mr. Menzies. So that's the issue, the facts in issue, as far as you will report, police charged Mr. Menzies for laughing. Well, that's not accurate, and it's misleading.
No, I'm sorry, that's not good enough. The fact that David was laughing was specifically mentioned in his written report. It was important enough that it was photographed and included when only a handful of photos. It was clearly something that bothered the police. They wanted to wipe that smile off his face. They were outraged with him. If laughing was irrelevant, why was it mentioned specifically? Why was there a photo of the laughing?
Anything else you want to tell me?
Just that I would like you to report it in a fair factual manner, and that emphasis on the facts and issue.
Okay, well, I'll do my best, and I appreciate and I will, and you'll see.
I don't have anything personal against Rebel News, Mr. Menzies, or you, sir.
Okay.
We are fair, try to be as fair and impartial, and maybe you can write this down, that we try to be as fair and impartial as we possibly can, but knowing that we cannot please everyone, and that there will be people that are going to be upset, and we cannot charge everyone. It's just physically impossible.
You know, it was a frustrating 15 minutes with that cop. I was actually surprised that he would talk to me at all about a case that hasn't been in court yet. I think it's a bit weird for a cop to speak at length about a case before he has to appear as a witness in that case. I agree with some of the things that he says, I got to tell you. In fact, I think he softened me a little bit. These laws are ridiculous. They are not evenly enforced, and his job is to enforce them. Why get mad at a law enforcement officer for enforcing laws he didn't write? Why not get mad at the fools writing those laws? And by the way, those aren't even elected officials. You think MPPs vote on these laws? These are regulations passed by unknown, unnamed, unaccountable public health bureaucrats. Now, that does cut some ice with me. I'll tell you, he changed my mind a couple of degrees, but not a lot, because out of 600 people who attended that day, 588 went home without a ticket, only 12 were targeted. And unlike Staff Sergeant McLean's analogy to random speeding tickets, this was anything but random. They pored over pictures and videos for days. They made lists. They scoured Facebook posts. They creeped individuals out there. They labeled people as political troublemakers. That's why they chose David Menzies as the only reporter to charge. I asked this cop 5 times why he chose David Menzies, and he wouldn't answer any time. Well, that's an answer in itself, isn't it? So there you have it. Is he Canada's most violent cop? No. That's probably someone in Toronto. Is he the most corrupt cop? No. Obviously, that dishonor goes to Montreal. The stupidest cops are to be found in Aylmer. But for singling out our Rebel News reporter who has a TB mask exemption, who is outdoors, singling him out for the offense of shaking hands with a lovely old lady, and then singling him out for the offense of laughing and taking surveillance photos of the handshaking and the laughing, and then defending that as normal policing, I hereby nominate Staff Sergeant Dan McLean of Peterborough as Canada's worst cop. What do you think? Let me know. And if you want to help David Menzies and stand with him, well, then go to standwithmenzies.com, because we are going to fight this all the way. And we've got a few more questions for Staff Sergeant McLean, except for this time, he'll be under oath when he answers them. That's an excerpt from my daily show, the Ezra Levant Show. Every day I do a monologue on the news of the day, then I interview an interesting guest, and then I read my hate mail. You gotta subscribe. Go to rebelnews.com.